Welcome back to the Legal Brief, the show where we crush the various legal myths and misinformation surrounding various areas of the gun world. I'm your host, Adam Kraut, and today we're talking about the bill that everybody wants to talk about. And no, I'm not talking about national reciprocity, we already covered that. The Fix NICS Act of 2017.
Rand CLP offers an entire lineup of non-toxic cleaners and lubes for the discerning shooter. You can use their bore and bolt to clean up carbon, fouling, or rust, and then follow it up with their CLP, or for hot and heavy applications, the hog grease, for before, during, and after the range. Find out what the nano-infused bio-friendly lineup from Rand CLP is all about over at randclp.com.
February will be here before you know it, and that means the NRA Board of Directors ballot will be arriving in your monthly magazine soon. To learn more about my stance on the problems gun owners face, head on over to my website, adamkraut.com. While you're there, don't forget to grab a petition to amend the bylaws of the NRA. The link is in the description. Last week, we saw the House of Representatives pass the Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act and the Fix NICS Act. While the passage of national reciprocity is a huge deal, it seems people are more interested in discussing the Fix NICS Act, which was shoehorned in there. Why are more people interested in talking about that? Representative Massey of Kentucky and several gun lobby organizations have been sounding the alarm that Fix NICS is a Trojan horse, which will result in more individuals losing their rights. The question I have is, are they right? Before we dive into the details, how did we get here?
I'll tell you the truth. I'm a little confused by your tactics.
The Fix NICS Act was combined with the language from the Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act, and they were voted on as one bill. Now that it is in the Senate, there are several things that can happen. First, the Senate can pass the bill exactly as it was sent to them. If that's the case, off to the president's desk it goes for his signature. The Senate can also pass their own version of the bill, which would result in two bills going to conference. When bills go to conference, members from both the House and the Senate revise the language of the bills they each pass and come up with one final version. Once they create a final version, the bill is sent back to both chambers, where it's either voted up or down. There can be no further amendments that are added at that point. If both chambers vote to pass the bill, it goes to the president's desk for signature. If one chamber fails to adopt it, the bill dies, and that's the end. There's also one other version of this called ping pong, which could happen, but since that's a little complicated and unlikely, we're not going to dive into that today. Now that we know what could happen with the bill, what exactly does Fix NICS say? We're going to talk about the stuff that really matters here. Section 2 deals with the accountability for federal departments and agencies. It requires that on a semi-annual basis, the head of the department or agency submit a written certification indicating whether the department or agency is in compliance with the record submission requirements. And for those wondering, the law already specifies and requires that record submissions are to be done no less than on a quarterly basis. And those records are the ones that prohibit individuals from possessing firearms and ammunition. The bill requires that within 1 year from the date of the enactment, the head of the department or agency, with the assistance of the Attorney General, must establish a plan to ensure maximum coordination and automated reporting, or the making of records available to the Attorney General. It also requires that the accuracy of those records be verified. The bill also sets up a benchmark requirement to measure the progress. You may be asking yourself, well, that's all well and good, but if the law already specifies that departments and agencies have to report these records, then why does this matter? As we stand right now, there's no penalties for non-compliance. The bill seeks to address that by adding a section on accountability, a novel concept for government agencies. And remember guys, the whole point of this is to ensure that the NICS system has a complete set of records so that prohibited persons don't slip through the cracks. The bill would require the Attorney General to publish a semi-annual report which discloses the names of departments or agencies that failed to comply with the certification requirements. That report would also list the reasons the AG has determined the department or agency was not in compliance. So we have an element of public shaming. In reality, is that going to work? Probably not. However, the House has decided to hit people where it really hurts, their wallet. From 2019 to 2022, a political appointee of a department or an agency that's failed to certify compliance and is not in substantial compliance shall not be eligible for bonus pay until that department or agency remedies the defect. I don't know about you, but where I work, they're hesitant to pay me for not doing my job, let alone give me bonuses. So in essence, we have a section that requires federal departments and agencies to report records of individuals who would be prohibited under the Gun Control Act, require them to certify that records are being reported, and penalize political appointees who manage departments or agencies that are not in compliance. The next section reauthorizes the NICS Act Record Improvement Program. The only thing that jumps out in this section is the establishment of a priority area for domestic abuse and violence prevention initiative, which would emphasize the need for grantees to identify and upload all felony conviction and domestic violence records. Again, adding to the records of individuals who would be prohibited under federal law. Section 4 reauthorizes the National Criminal History Improvement Program. Again, not much worthy of discussion in this section. However, I did find it interesting that the language would amend the law to include the integration of national, state, and local criminal record systems to identify individuals who have been convicted of a crime punishable for a term exceeding 1 year. If you recall, the GCA prohibits individuals who are convicted of a crime punishable by more than 1 year of imprisonment from possessing firearms and ammunition. Included in that definition are individuals convicted of a state law misdemeanor punishable by more than 2 years imprisonment. In essence, this section again ups the reporting requirements for agencies. The bill also requires state and Indian tribal governments to establish a plan to ensure maximum coordination and automated reporting or making records available to the Attorney General. This section carries similar requirements as it does for federal departments and agencies we discussed earlier. However, unlike the punishment aspect for political appointees, the bill uses a carrot and stick approach for states. Comply with the requirements and get preferences for grants. Fail to comply, and funding may become more difficult to obtain as other states and tribal governments would have preference for that money. Lastly, the bill has a provision for the Bureau of Justice Statistics to prepare a written report within 6 months of the passage of the bill that would be presented to both the Judiciary Committees of the House and Senate. The report would specify the number of times a bump fire stock has been used in the commission of a crime. I'll venture a guess here, but that number is probably staggeringly low. So what exactly are Representative Mossy and others raising the alarm about? Well, for one, they all cite to the fact that Senators Feinstein and Schumer are sponsors of the Senate version of the bill.
And their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil.
Fair point. Mossy also points to the fact that there's $790 million authorized in the bill as incentives to introduce more names into the NICS database. In other words, he believes that the reportings will increase and be subject to records the sitting AG at the time believes belong in the database. Now, you may recall us previously covering the Social Security Administration and its proposed regulation for reporting individuals to the NICS system. The SSA entered into rulemaking under the Obama administration and actually created a regulation that would have required the reporting of individuals who were deemed mentally defective to manage their financial affairs. At the beginning of this year, Congress repealed that regulation.
What are you trying to tell me? That I can dodge bullets?
However, the Veterans Administration is and has been engaging in that same conduct, only without having gone through the formal process of creating a regulation. That's leaving a number of veterans unable to exercise their Second Amendment rights and fails to provide them with due process. Whether or not fixed NICS is implemented, this has been and continues to be a problem. The question that arises is whether fixed NICS will increase the number of individuals being reported under similar conditions and accepted by the sitting Attorney General's interpretation of the law. There have also been discussions about simple things, such as unpaid traffic tickets leading to individuals being prohibited. It is true that an unpaid traffic ticket can result in a bench warrant being issued for your arrest.
I have unpaid parking tickets.
The question then becomes, are you actually a fugitive from justice, which is a prohibited category? It's hard to say. The Gun Control Act defines the term to mean any person who has fled from any state to avoid prosecution for a crime or to avoid giving testimony in any criminal proceeding. While it's unlikely that the majority of people flee from the state where that traffic ticket was issued to avoid prosecution, it is certainly possible that a person may be denied on the basis of being a fugitive from justice. In fact, it happens already. The question remains, does the bill result in more individuals in that situation being reported, or are they already being reported anyway? So what's the bottom line? The bill offers incentives to agencies, departments, and states to comply with the law. At the federal level, if the agency or department is in compliance, the political appointee running the show is eligible for bonus pay. Failure to comply means the agency or department is placed on the naughty list, and that political appointee is not eligible for bonus money. For states, it's a similar approach. In compliance, here's preferential treatment for more grant money. Failure to comply, you may be eligible for the grant money, after we go through all the people who are getting preferential treatment. It's like getting picked last for dodgeball.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
What?
The concern remains whether or not the records being reported are accurate. There's a huge problem with administrative agencies adjudicating someone as a mental defective and reporting them to NICS without giving them due process. Then we have the traffic ticket scenario. Those individuals may not actually be fugitives from justice by definition, but may be reported anyway. It is worth noting that NICS does have issues with false positives, and one could extrapolate that if more records are being fed into the system, it will exacerbate that problem. As for what others are saying, I've included links in the description so you can see what the NRA, GOA, Representative Mossy, and others are saying about fixed NICS. As with any system relying on a database, it's only as good as the information in it. Given NICS has issues with false positives, I'm inclined to take issue with the fixed NICS bill. On a personal note, and this is what I told my representative prior to the House voting on the bill, I'd like to see national reciprocity and fixed NICS voted on as two separate bills. Sick of wrong information finding its way around the internet? Make sure you share this video with your friends. Don't forget to hit that like button, and if you haven't subscribed already, you better make that happen. Hang out on Facebook, be sure to join us on the TGC Nation group. Check out my website, adamkraut.com, and as always, thanks for watching.
The shirts worn in today's video on the Gun Collective have been provided by Patriot Patch. Closed captions have also been brought to you by Patriot Patch Company. Be sure to click the link in the video description to check out all of their great products, including their cleaning mats.